What's up, YouTube and all my fellow mini bike maniacs? Samuel Ray Church here, and today we're going to start working on our custom frame. We're going to be building a drag style frame. I'm going to make it kind of low and long and heavy duty so we can put a lot of power through it. And basically what I'm starting with is this drawing right here. Just a quick sketch of my idea. I'm going to be going with very simple bends and a couple of welds to make a unique frame that I believe will be really strong. And we're starting with some DOM. And what we're basing it on is our old school Montgomery Ward's frame, which we like a lot, and it's really fun. But one thing I don't like about it is where the back wheel is. The back wheel is really far forward as far as the center of gravity goes. So with my design, instead of it being so far forward, I brought the wheel way back, and I put a 45 here in the top of the frame, and we'll have a much more extreme angle on the bottom, which is why I'm going to be welding it on the bottom corner. But then we'll have a nice parallelogram of a frame, and what we're going to be using is my homemade tubing bender that I made from a Harbor Freight pipe bender, which I saw online. I watched a few videos of guys using these benders to bend tubing, which you have to do a lot of modifications to do that. First, we have the rollers that came with the bender. I'm going to pull out. This is the hydraulic jack that came with the pipe bender. Most important piece is going to be my homemade die slash a bender attachment, which the die that came with the bender I modified so that I can clamp the pipe or tubing to the die and then use the jack to crank it around the die and make it nice and smooth bend, which it's been working pretty good. So, and you can tell I just cut up the frame and used the existing mounting holes for the dies, and I just made it work more like a Rogue Fab type bender. I can do just over 45 degrees bends with the full stroke of the jack. I can also do 90s and past 90s. You just have to release the jack and reset, which I believe a lot of benders are pretty much similar. So I know according to my plan I need at least 30 inches for the bottom, because the piece I'm bending is the bottom rail and the upright that goes to the steering. So I need at least 30 to the bend. Yeah, looks like 30 to the bend. So I'm going to give myself a little extra, so I'm going to go 32. So the way I designed this, right now it's just basically designed to do 1-inch tubing, but I can do a little smaller than that with this die. So feed it in here until we get to that line. There we go. So I line that line I made up with the die because I know that's where the bend is going to start. Cam system to tighten my tubing to the die so it doesn't move. That feels pretty good. Anyway,
we getting the good shots. Getting them good shots,
good shots. So
We ain't building rocket ships.
That was a little.
We need a little dimpling. And then we'll cut that out. Oh, we'll just show that part.
It's fine. That's how it's going to work with that. So I got my 8-foot piece of tube bent. I got my 45 degree here I want. Wrinkled a little bit, but
This is the prototype. This is the prototype.
So we're just trying to figure things out. Next thing I got to do is I made this jig to make both sides exactly the same, and I've got a nice 90-degree angle here. I've got a nice straight line all the way across for my bottom piece, and I've also got a nice straight parallel line up here for my top piece. Once I cut this, I will throw the top piece in, and I'll show you how I mark to cut the other side. And I also want to do a 45 degree here. Basically right there. Because the other tube's going to come down and butt up against that in the corner here at an exact 90-degree angle. Alright, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. So now I have my nice looking 45 there. I have a little bit left to clean up there possibly, but it's really close, so I like that. And we've got it nice and flush against this piece and also nice and flush against here, so I know I've got a good 45 and it's going to match my other side. Line is similar. A little higher on this one this time. Can you hold that? Alright guys, so here it is. Tacked up. 2 pieces in my jig. I've got a nice 90-degree here. This is my 45, and then this is my parallel piece up here. The top piece has 1, 2, 3 45s, and then the bottom has just the 145. Identical. So now I have 2 that should be interesting enough. So now I just got to figure out how to make a frame out of these 2 pieces. So I jumped ahead a little bit because I needed to get the frame straight and square and plumb. I don't have a jig yet. I'm working on a design for a frame jig. I'm not sure exactly what I want yet, so I wanted to go ahead and try to put together a frame without an actual jig, just to see where I'm going to need the most help and where I want to focus all my energy as far as the jig goes. So I've got the frame just basically welded together. And what I've done is, once I had 2 matching hoops, I made 2 parallel lines down here, and so my 2 bottom tubes from this bend all the way to this corner back here is parallel and straight. So then I've got nice right angles here, here, I've got a right angle there, I've got a nice right angle here. Also, from this corner to this corner is also a right angle. So 90 degrees, 90 degrees, 2 parallel lines. These are going to be for my engine plate. I went ahead and made some brackets for the rear axle to go through. And the way I got those lined up is I kind of had to have a little faith in my other measurements, but I measured off of this surface here up and off of this surface here forward. So assuming that these 2 are perfectly level and flat and these 2 90s are equal, as long as I have the exact same measurement on both sides, these should be parallel, level, plumb, all that good stuff. And I put the wheel on and everything looks good there. Only problem is I wanted a nice tight angle and a good angle here, so I'm going to have a little bit of clearance issue right here for the sprocket and the brake. This is where we're at. Next step I want to work on is getting the front end mounted. And I've got my frame set up here. If you can see, first of all, I'm dead nuts level there, if you can see, right in between the lines. I'm also level up there on top. You can see woodworking square here, which I believe is very accurate. And it's hard to see, but if I line that up, but if you line it up just so you can see, I'm pretty dead on as far as the centering goes. So I've got 2 different planes I really need to worry about. I'm going to go off of this a little bit, but really I have a center line marked here that I'm going to be working off of heavily, and level. So as far as I can tell, this is about as level as it's going to get. I plan on moving the frame back, getting the wheel forward. So I'm going to move some things around and we are going to get back with you once I get the front end kind of mocked up. Alright guys, we're back. So you can see I've just got my front end loosely thrown up there for mock-up, just to get a kind of an idea of the height and angle I'm going for, which is basically like that. I'm going to have to bring it off of the frame just a hair so I'll have room to turn. And I'm looking at around a 40-degree rake, not quite the 45 that I have here with the tubing there. It's going to be a little bit less than that, so I'm thinking like 40 degrees, maybe somewhere. This is what I'm going to be using for my steering. It's just a basic 1/2-inch bolt with bushings that are going to fit into this DOM that I got. So I believe if I cut my tube 5 inches long, that should be just the right size to fit in between my forks here. I'm just gonna use this all thread as a guide to get me 100%. So I'm gonna bolt my steering tube and bushings into this, and then I'm going to fasten this bottom corner down directly on my center line, and then I'm gonna set my tube in place up here using a plate on the bottom and a plate on the top to locate my steering tube up here. And once I've got this secured to my center line and I've got all my pieces clamped up here, should be able to get it nice and straight. So next step, I'm going to cut a tube and then we're going to get it all set up so I can get my steering tube welded in place straight and true, and hopefully when I bolt the front end on and put the wheels on, it'll look right and roll right. Alright, so as you can see, I've got my tubing cut. Nice hefty piece of tubing. I've got my little bushings there. I got my 1/2-inch bolt running through. And then what we're going to do is figure out how to weld this to there. Got my neck tube bolted into a piece of all thread. I've got the all thread mounted directly on my center line. Be able to see, but we're looking at about 35 degrees there. Yeah, 35 degrees I believe, or close to it. The length of this all thread is very important. The length from this point to this point is the length from the very top of my front end all the way down to where it would be hitting this imaginary ground line. So at 21 1/4 inches, this piece here is as long as my front end would be if I had the front end in place rather than just the bar. So hopefully you can kind of see where I'm at and how I'm figuring this out. It may not be 100% perfect, but for what I'm working with and the amount of time I have to do this, I think it's going to work just fine. But next thing I want to do is make a plate to go from here to here, and also a plate to go from down here up to there. And then once I have it clamped, I can tack it, and then I'll double check all my angles, and if they look good, go ahead and do some solid welds, get everything solidly in place, and then I can throw the front end on. So you can see we've got our frame all tacked up and we've got a nice roller going. We've got our front end figured out. I really like the ride height. It's looking good as far as that goes. We've got both of our wheels mounted so we know where everything's going to land. So next time we're going to work on getting our engine mounted. I've got an idea for a really nice engine mount that slides on a channel. And we're also going to get the handlebars mounted, and we'll start working on the smaller stuff like brakes and throttle and pegs. And hopefully we'll be taking this thing for a ride real soon. But for now, that's what we've got, and we'll check you guys later. Signing off.